everyone, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Money. Today we'll be covering the latest updates and market structure in crypto, and Maxime today is going to just walk us through where we're at in the market. And without further ado, just Maxime, welcome back, and bring it on. What do we need to know? What's happening in the market?
Hello, Francesco. First, nice to be back. I've been away from the show for a couple of weeks, so it's nice to get back on track and shoot some more and share, of course, some more content. Well, let's say today is the good day to talk about. I think the market, it's a bit greener than the past few weeks that we had. But as an investor perspective, let's say the trend is still the same. We're going up. We're in the middle of a range, maybe even more bottom middle of the range, depending on what you're looking at. But the structure, I think it's still intact. We still have traction. And from what we saw recently in the news, a lot of companies disclosed their Bitcoin holdings recently. And we saw that many institutional players have bought Bitcoin. So it's good news. Maybe not as much as some, let's say, a market expert expected, but still they're in the market and we're not going up in a straight line, which is, I think, very healthy as well. Those big players, they don't buy the top. They wait and they support the price when they think it's the right moment. And basically, I guess they've been supporting the price of Bitcoin recently at the bottom of the range, not the top. Let's see.
I think see this as a consolidation phase, basically.
Yeah, consolidation phase. And that's what we need, because if we go up in a straight line, we all know it will end up like it's blow off top and huge correction. And that's not something that we want to see. It usually happens at the end of a cycle. Yeah. Hopefully we're not at the end at all, which is what I expect and what I can see. It's not just expectation. Probably also a longer cycle. If you have bigger players and more participants in the market, we can expect that some of them will just jump in, jump off at certain points. So we'll see some consolidation phases. And as long as we go up, as long as we leave the consolidation by going up, it's good. If we broke down, it's another story, let's say.
Let's break that down a little bit then, Maxime, if you don't mind. So, I mean, if we sort of zoom out and we look at where we're at versus where we've come from, we've had a bull market that sort of came to the last peak at the end of 2021. It's been downward cycle in 22. It's stabilized down at, if we think of BTC, like low 20s. And with that, all the rest of the market was at pretty low levels. It's been back on the up cycle quite significantly. BTC notably pulling the market back up, and some interesting returns on SOL, for instance, has been really booming. Perhaps by far the outperformer amongst the mega caps, right? Or the big cap cryptos. And this year, of course, we've had a lot of enthusiasm around the ETF that brought a lot of momentum. Arguably already started a big chunk of end of last year. We've had a halving come through. Actually, maybe that's still been quite an innocent moment in the market. Perhaps just a spike in fees, but also than that, in terms of price action, we're still in this sort of a consolidation mode. So take us through maybe some of those big names. What's your view on BTC, on ETH, on SOL, some of those dynamics around the big names?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important to say that I don't look market as for trading, really more as mid-long-term investment. And that's more like the purpose of Not Your Money as well, is to take the big picture of the market, take a step back, zoom out, and look at the long-term trend. What you mentioned first is the halving. Halving seems like it's been popular for years, but it's not. Like, it's the first time that I saw so much enthusiasm around halving. That's the first halving that we saw when I heard so many people talking about the halving coming. So it was really like the commercials around Bitcoin this year. But of course, in the past, each halving, each cycle, let's say, bull cycle was around the halving time, more or less. Like, I think there is a range 6 to 8 months after the halving date, it triggered a bull run. I think it will still be the case. Like, it's embedded in the Bitcoin code, and with so many participants, I don't see why it won't play out once again. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer, but yeah, we just have to be patient. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, we saw those meme craze mostly happening on Solana, and a lot of activity happening on that network. It's a big comeback after the collapse of FTX. Solana was trading like below $10, and it's now, I saw the other day it was up like more than 20x in total like from $8-9 to above $200, which is definitely the big winner among the top market cap. Let's say the top 10 is definitely the big winner.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of fundamentals in play for Solana, especially some upgrade. They are developing a new client, and they are selling a huge their USP. Let's say it's like to achieve I think it's 1 million transaction per second with fire dancer. Great. Let's see if that happened, but it will be a big narrative.
Can we just dig into that? So you're absolutely right. This is not a trading show. We're not here to look at price signals. It's all about fundamentals. So maybe just to sort of square off and make it clear, Bitcoin's digital golds, the monetary play. I think it's pretty clear, and maybe more than ever, this space is consolidated. I think that there was a time perhaps when some ETH fans might have thought that ETH was competing with Bitcoin. I think it's becoming clear, at least to me, that the market is structured for different players in different parts of the market, and everyone has every crypto asset has its niche, right? So maybe if Bitcoin is clear, I think, as to where it sits, tell us more about the ETH versus SOL fundamentals, and how do you what synergies are there, what complementarity is there, and maybe how they're really fundamentally different, and what's driving that momentum in one direction or the other.
So I'm not like a pure technical. I'm not an engineer, right? So I see it as an investor and try to see what speaks to me, basically. Fundamentally, like ETH moved from proof of work to proof of stake, so that was the major upgrade.
Yeah.
It was supposed to first speed up the network because it was hard to use, and also reduce the transaction fees because it was very expensive to use. Back in 2020, we had this DeFi summer, and fees were spiking up just to do a transaction on ETH at a specific time on a specific protocol. When the network was very busy, the gas fees were going through the roof, like a few $100s, which is crazy. It will still be the case, I guess, even though they've done many upgrades, they're still facing this issue with gas fees. And that's how Solana, I think, gained so much market share, because that's more like the behavior of the market itself. People are not willing to pay more fees because you're more decentralized. That's my takeaway here. Like, even though you have a network like Solana that is more centralized and maybe not like philosophically, that is not a pure blockchain play, let's say, because Ethereum, it's more decentralized, it's a foundation. Solana, it's more a company. It's backed with VCs. So no, let's see how it ends out. But Solana is fast, it's cheap. So people tend to put like the philosophy of blockchain a bit on the side to have a network that costs less and that is more efficient. So I think all the traction on Solana is mostly due to those fundamentals. And now Solana is pushing it even further to try to push even more TPS per second to be an even more efficient network without outrageous gas fees. So once again, Ethereum will be in this trade-off of we want to be the more decentralized network, but it's in terms of the investor's point of view, it doesn't seem to be like getting a lot of traction, even though we have a lot of institutional players right now who are tokenizing assets and also creating funds and tokenizing funds on Ethereum. Ethereum versus SOL, Ethereum is definitely losing traction here.
That's interesting. I can't still square it out. I'm a terrible investor, so I'm not even going to try and sort of game or play the game too much, but just really trying to grasp the fundamentals. It felt to me from the outset, Ethereum really had and still has grand plans to keep scaling and getting cheaper. The roadmap, every time I look at a roadmap, it keeps getting the impression of expanding, and it's almost an endless roadmap of evolutionary steps, whilst it feels some of these more novel chains, Solana, the one we're talking about now, but others too, are really pushing for transaction speeds, throughput, scalability in ways, perhaps addressing some of these points from the outset, not having had to come from a proof of work history, seems to be getting on with that sort of scalability objective much quicker and faster, and that way gaining momentum. So it's quite staggering when you look at how much market cap Solana drops on the table when it crashed with the FTX, and if you look at that relative to Ethereum, for instance, during the sort of winter, it lost a lot of momentum versus Ethereum, but it's now fully back. If you look at it, if you look at the price ratio between Sol and ETH now versus where it was at the peak, it's pretty much regained its momentum completely, and the trajectory seems to be on track to overtake it, unless something's in the pipeline for Ethereum, which is going to sort of I just don't see what's going to happen in Ethereum anytime soon, quite frankly, to regain a bit of attractiveness. But again, perhaps I'm missing something.
I guess there's a lot of expectation around restaking protocols that will help to definitely. And then we're getting into very technical aspect of Ethereum that even myself, I struggle to understand. And that's another part that is important to me today. It's if you want to speak to investors, and they need to understand at least what you're doing. And I think Ethereum is very techy. Even the Ethereum community tends to not communicate as well as some other blockchains in this space do today. And there's a lot of competition around speed, UX, decentralization. But I see maybe that's also a part of the issue with Ethereum. Like the tech is probably really good, but what are they doing? What are they developing? Maybe there's a lack of communication, and maybe some core players are aware of it. So we will see some accumulation and at some point an explosion in price when they release something that no one was expecting. That could be the case. But other blockchain such as Solana, but it's also Avalanche, Sui, have much better communication. But true, they are backed by a company. But in terms of,
do you think that's because they're more centralized? They can organize that better?
I think that's the purpose of that's just the purpose of the project itself for me. Like Ethereum is like a blockchain technology, and they started with the tech, while some other projects that are new, that they have the tech, but they also question themselves on how are we going to market our product. So when they launch, it's in the DNA of the company itself to promote the product and to sell it, because the competition is pretty strong. And Ethereum is coming from, let's say, a leader position. They were like the only blockchain where you had smart contract back in the days, and they had this first mover advantage for some times, but it looks like they are losing some traction. And now you have Solana, Avalanche, and some other Aptos, Sui that are coming, and many others. So let's see where it ends. I'm not.
Let's neither of us are technologists, so we can't cover the tech aspects of either. But let's try and tackle this maybe from a psychological or philosophical use case perspective. So say ETH versus the higher speed, higher throughput. You can use Solana as the example, but maybe others. What are their real world applications? So we can think of DeFi, for example. So how they're used to move money around in a decentralized way. I think that's quite interesting. That's real world. You and I and anyone can connect to a DeFi protocol and deposit assets, earn yields, borrow assets at interesting and attractive rates. That's real finance happening in a decentralized way. That might be one. I've spoken to a number of banks lately, and it's interesting to see that whoever's trying to tokenize or work with blockchains right now, at least from a banking financial service perspective, seems to be opting for Ethereum because of its security. So it may not come fast and scalable, but it's secure. And so the deep pockets, large banks aren't going to mess around gambling on whether or not a service may be up or down, right? So they want security first, and happy to take that gamble. So how do you see that play out? In my head, I see Solana pushing out phones, a lot of meme coin community momentum, good communication. But what's really driving the adoption on some of these new chains, starting with Solana?
First of all, you're right. In terms of use case, I think the biggest use case of blockchain so far is finance, rebuilding the financial system in a more decentralized way. And it's not the way we raise capital, the way we exchange money, the way we lend and borrow. It's brick by brick, rebuilding a system that is sustainable, generate interest, and allow people to raise capital and build a new paradigm. Hopefully more distributed in a way that the wealth generated is accessible by everyone, just not by big institutional, but also by yourself and myself. For me, that's the biggest use case, because beside that, I've not seen many. We heard a lot in gaming, but that's still to be proven, the way blockchain will improve gaming or change the way gaming works. Meme coin, I guess it's kind of tokenizing culture. I see it kind of a real world asset at some point, but it's a new way to tokenize and real world assets somehow. But for the rest, it's finance. And choosing between ETH, SOL, myself, I don't have the answer. I think Solana, they are backed by Jump Trading, and they are definitely taking this path where they are maybe more focusing on the trading aspect of things. So running the NYSE or NASDAQ on the blockchain itself. So having like a purely decentralized system where you can trade 24/7. I don't think they're aiming to tokenize everything, just like you can do with Ethereum. But Ethereum, it's being used differently time to time by institutionals, because they also have like private blockchain time to time. So funds that yourself and myself won't have access to, and they use just Ethereum as a settlement layer. So they just use the hash on Ethereum to prove that the information is right and you can trust it. But they don't give us access to those funds, like they're being tokenized, but we can't buy it. So it's quite complex, I think, and along the way, it's going to be hard even for the retail investors to understand everything that is happening, because we're reaching a level of complexity that is hard to grasp time to time.
So you touched on meme coins. I must say, I was very skeptical at first. I still, maybe it's a sign of my generation, don't fully grasp some of the ideas at times. But I'm starting to change my mind, or at least open my mind, let's say, to understanding the play. And I was with a bank yesterday actually talking about this very point and how they go about enabling or adding meme coins on their platform. And I thought it was quite curious. Again, in my head, it felt like there's no fundamental value. But if I go back to me as a kid, I was collecting stamps, and some stamps were more valuable than others for whatever reasons. And I was always trying to chase for some of the precious ones, like with your collectible cards, Pokemon cards, or whatever may be of interest in collectors communities. And now this sort of digital collectibles ramping up value out of nowhere. It was just quite fascinating. I mean, if you look at, there's quite a number of them, right? I mean, lately, actually, it feels like in this sideways momentum, if you're not after the big king, if we're not hearing the sort of the latest news around Bitcoin ETFs and where the Bitcoin price is going to be, it feels like that the next thing in town is, from a speculative investment perspective, seems to rest in the meme coin space more than some of those protocols and chains that actually do have real development, real use cases, real world applications associated with them. What's your take on memes?
Well, for me, it's just if you take in the real world, right? I don't remember, but the money spent in casino, it's quite a huge market. So for me, it's just the casino on the blockchain. And if you go to a casino, you have very few chances to win. And you have those meme coin market where you see assets going like 1,000% every day. So it's very attractive. It's a cultural thing for me. As I said, it's like a tokenizing culture. So the culture of gambling, for example, is for me, if you put it on chain, it's meme coin. And it's the strength of putting people together, the strength of a community. And a friend of mine told me that I invest in meme coin because it doesn't need any catalyst to go up. So somehow you don't need any fundamentals, just a good community that is pushing it. I'm myself not meme traders, or I have few just that I bought for long-term, not so long-term investment, but of course, what I'm going to do with it, not much. That's true. But I think it's part of the culture of.
Do you think there's a more fundamental element to this too? So if Bitcoin is now being legitimized, blessed pretty much around the world with ETFs, it's pretty much recognized as a commodity. We know how to deal with it, whether in true sort of digital form or in synthetic ETF form, but we know what it is. We know how to buy it. There are still lots of question marks around the ETH ETF, the ETH security question. And if ETH was to be considered a security, what would that mean to all other similar cryptos? That could, XRP, Solana, Avalanche, potentially they could all be quite, arguably put in that same basket versus meme coins, which clearly are not security. They're just ideas wrapped up. Yeah. So do you think there's a bit of that at play as well?
Yeah, probably. But I don't see investors like investing in meme coin and say, oh, it's not a security, so I go all in and I will hold those meme coin till, for the next 5 to 10 years. Not so sure about it. Like, it's really more a trading vehicle. And from the inside, you know that a meme coin that will go up is a meme coin that is listed on the central exchanges. So it's also a game of liquidity. Like, if it becomes liquid, then more money is flowing into the asset itself, and it becomes a trading vehicle, and not just like a small coin on a decentralized exchanges that is difficult to access. So there's also this game where we see a meme coin that being listed on tier 3 exchanges first, then tier 2, then tier 1 with Binance, Coinbase, and then the price explodes. So yeah. They've also played that game, those big exchanges, to just list quite quickly new meme coin as soon as there's a hype behind it, because they are chasing the liquidity. And what you said is quite right. We are in a range, so the volume are going maybe a bit down. And what do you do as an exchange? You list more meme tokens somehow to increase the volume, and whether it's going up or down, what you need is fees.
So what do you expect to happen? Again, this is obviously not investment advice, but just in terms of market structure, you think we're going to snap out of this cycle eventually? One of those post-halving triggers eventually will see us rushing back up. Summer typically isn't a great period from a sort of volume and price momentum perspective, so perhaps we shouldn't expect to see too much happening or in large chunks. But again, I have no crystal ball to be able to predict that.
I wish I could predict the market. I think at this stage, you always have this famous quote like "sell in May and go away," because volumes tends to go down during May, June. Let's say July, August, and time to time it's picking up again during fall. It's hard to say, because I think we're in 24/7 market. It's always open, so no one can really predict what's going to happen in the near future. From my point of view, after halving, the big thing I'm looking at is the presidential election in the US, because you can see that crypto is becoming one of the number one theme in the presidential election, with Trump trying to be crypto friendly. And we know that the US market is the biggest financial market still as of today. So it's quite funny to see the SEC going after crypto, because they are chasing the money, right? SEC, they build a case, and after that, they know crypto company have a lot of money, so they will settle and spend a lot of money to settle the case. But if Trump starts to be crypto friendly, what the other side is going to do? Are they going to be against crypto or play the crypto game as well, because they want, they are chasing the votes? So let's see how it plays out. And on top of that, with Tila, and if you followed closely what the previous episode of Not Your Money, we're sitting on a big pile of shit that is called the debt. And the way we try to solve the issue, which is not solving it, it's printing more money.
Right.
And I think it's not going to stop anytime soon, because once again, if you're president, you want the market to be healthy. How do you keep the market healthy? You're still pouring dollars into the market. And I think there's no solution. They will still printing one way or the other, and it will end up on the market. I think that's the play that everyone expects.
All my thoughts and my words, Maxime, very, very well put. I mean, as you say, the biggest economic market is up for elections. Two things I think are about to happen. One is, well, you're always handing out goodies during presidential elections, especially when you get elected. Whoever gets elected, we saw this time and time again. That doesn't matter whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, they'll keep printing to fulfill their sort of voting claims, push or pull, put more money into the market one way or another, print more money, lower rates likely, right? And that way increase liquidity. And when you increase liquidity in the market, it chases wherever the best returns are. So the stock market is already right now in a very sort of bullish mode. It keeps gaining new highs. Gold has been on a rip for a while, so a part of the market is looking for security that way. So if you just follow those fundamentals, it feels inevitable that more capital will find its way to Bitcoin, either as a digital gold or as a risk asset, whichever part of the market likes to look at it. And with that, the rest of the crypto market will see more capital injected in this space.
Yeah, and keep in mind that that's something also we've discussed in the past on that channel, right? Is the fact that if you print more money, how do you fight inflation? I mean, you just get weaker and weaker fiat currency. So you're just weakening your own currency. And the old thesis around Bitcoin is to fight inflation, right? It's like there's a controlled inflation. We know the number of tokens that are going to be mined till 2,140, something like that. And many of those cryptocurrencies have limited supply. So that's also the thing. Like, it's a new way to control economy, and it can't be changed. Like, it's the code. Some crypto can change the code, but still it's very hard, and it won't be done by a politician or any central authority. So it's kind of when you put it that way, like the old, it makes a lot of sense that those assets will just appreciate over time. And if they don't, well, they don't. I mean, that's how it is. But there is a lot of argument towards crypto right now, I guess.
How about downside risk, Maxime? I can't ask the opposite question too. So we like to remain optimistic around the market, but what does the downside look like? The possibilities of a downside. It could be, I mean, there are always exogenous factors. It could be next war. We can't predict how things play out in the Middle East, in Russia, Ukraine, and I don't know, China, US dynamics can always degenerate in ways we sometimes fail to fully grasp. What kind of downwards momentum pressure would you factor in?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the biggest one. I guess it's a geopolitical issue, in like wars especially, and we saw a lot of tension in many areas of the globe right now. So it could be one, and of course, crypto is still a risk asset, so risk asset class. And if it happens, we can expect some black swan events. But still, if it happens, well, if you invest wisely, you hold Bitcoin spot or any crypto, you don't leverage, you don't use derivatives. So you're holding those tokens in your wallet. Like the risk is temporary in my view, because the fundamentals won't change. So it could last for some time, but as long as the network is running up and running, I think it will be temporary. And by the way, the network itself, we could have like some technical issues on some network. And here we saw what happened with Solana having some downtimes, unfortunately. But imagine having some networks being down for a couple of days. It could be pretty bad if it happens on a major crypto. Never happened on Bitcoin though. So
I think we should. I've been emphasizing that very point many times lately in all sorts of different events.
One that you really like is the regulatory issue and stablecoins. That like if Tether I mean, they're trying to do their best to be as transparent as possible and so on, but it's like the third biggest crypto, or it's in the top 5 anyway. Still, we are highly relying on Tether on this market. So if facing any issue on Tether stablecoin, you can just kill this market. I'm
becoming an increasingly a fan of stablecoins, just in terms of their use case, how they're serving as a payment, as a tokenized dollar, cross-border payments, instant payments for next to nothing. It's amazing if you think of it. But we talked about this in the year-end predictions, and I did allude to I remain worried about the stability of stablecoins and our dependence on, well, USDT really is the key dominant one, and it'd be nice to have a little more variation to the theme, a little more diversification in the stablecoin space, to not be so reliant on one central actor. We welcome more transparency for sure. More is always welcome, but also more players entering the space. Gold stablecoins, euro stablecoins, other currency stablecoins.
But it's coming. I think we'll see more and more stablecoins being backed by better assets. Let's say more transparency, and that's not the biggest risk in my opinion. I think the geopolitical risk is the first one, and regulatory is right after it, because with the regulation you can impact the market quite badly. I think like the geopolitical risk is the biggest one for me at this stage. The rest, I think we can more or less mitigate it somehow. It won't be always global. If the US tends to go in one way, maybe Asia will go, or China will go the other way, because it won't be global but if you have a conflict like worldwide, it would be like the worst one. But it would be like for almost every asset class, because we saw that even during COVID, like gold went down for some time. So I think all the markets could be affected by this type of risk. So overall, it's let's keep in mind, it's a high risk asset class for sure, very volatile, and you have to know what you're doing.
Thanks, Maxime. Anything else we should cover? Any shooting stars or gems or interesting ideas, new use cases you're seeing? We're going to have a separate dedicated session on runes, the layer 2 novelty on the Bitcoin blockchain. But what else are you looking at the moment that excites you?
Well, runes was definitely one of them. I think, for Bitcoin, it's an important, let's say, move within the Bitcoin community that will deserve its own episode to be covered, of course. Overall, I think it's more on the market sentiment. It's quite interesting we saw the GameStop, because we have also those meme stock, right? So we saw this happening recently, this GameStop saga that was like, I think back in 2021, where we saw like big funds being liquidated because some dudes on Reddit started to long a stock and it went up crazy. So I think meme coin, first of all, you have the same on the stock market, and that's often what you see in crypto. You're like, oh, crypto is crazy, it's volatile, it's XYZ, but if you look at Nvidia recently, I don't know, it went up like, I don't know, 400, 500, 600% in a matter of like a year or two. So in general, some experts call it the exponential age, but I think there's a real big shift in the macro trends that we are seeing at the moment, just beyond crypto. It's in the financial market in general. And yeah, let's see how it plays out. But I expect a lot of movement, not just in crypto.
Interesting. When I look at the bigger world and the bigger markets, macro markets, the Magnificent Seven, I mean, it really does feel it's only a tech and increasingly an AI tech story.
Yeah.
The narrative that's driving growth. If you strip those 7 names out of the US market, there's basically no market. I mean, the GDP levels, the growth levels we're referring to would be quite grim, which I think is quite telling. So, it's nice to see technology momentum on the one hand, but it does feel like everything else is not moving or not really. There are no real significant growth stories in other domains. I'm thinking, I don't know, healthcare or education. There are so many other aspects of society that need to develop and grow and enhance, and yet we're only.
This time you stole it from my mouth. I was thinking about AI, and I think the combination is there. Like AI is definitely the new narrative. It's here to stay, and just in a week, like most of those Magnificent Seven implemented an AI feature or talked about their new AI stuff, because ChatGPT 4.0 just came out, and you saw like Microsoft implementing new things on LinkedIn, and you see like Google launching their new AI model as well. So AI is pretty much everywhere, and it's definitely the big narrative that will.
Do you know where Nvidia made its first bucks from, Maxime, when it first started?
No, because first time I heard about Nvidia was like me buying a graphic card for my PC at home. So
Bitcoin mining, they were enabling the first graphic cards for the earlier Bitcoin miners. So it's interesting to see how there's a connection between the shooting AI star.
But they were doing graphic card before Bitcoin mining, right? Or what you meant is like they already started to catch
the first sort of significant upward momentum in Nvidia's price
was correlated with Bitcoin mining. Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, we're talking a while back, but I think it's an interesting connection there.
Yeah, true.
Right. Maxime, we've been on for a while. I think we've covered a bit. Thanks for the insights and updates. And any closing remarks?
It's been a pleasure as always to be on the show, and I hope we'll have time to shoot more videos in the near future. And feel free to, of course, like, subscribe, and leave some comments if you're interested by certain topics. We'll be happy to cover those. And thank you again for setting up the show.
Thank you, Maxime. Stay safe out there, and see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao. I hope you enjoyed our video. If you found the video informative, please don't forget to follow our channel and click the alarm button to be informed of new videos coming through. There is plenty to learn and get your head around on your journey to mastering crypto. Thanks for watching, and see you on our next video.